And there we are. Hello, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you are in the world. This is the Startup Sales Mastery Video Podcast. My name, of course, is Keith. And if you don't know what I do, it's right there in front of you. I help early stage tech companies get on out there in the marketplace and scale like there's no tomorrow by getting customers. And I'm joined today by Chris, who actually contacted me via LinkedIn. We were having a chat and we said we'd have a phone call. And then we said, let's have a phone call on the podcast and do it all at once. Why? I'll let Chris tell you more, but in short, he is based in Poland and he brings innovative solutions, which basically means startup tech, into the European market. And he's been eyeing up a lot of Israeli companies. He uses Poland as a validation demographic. And of course, he's well connected to a lot of the corporations out there. So for anybody watching out there, this is a little different than the usual Startup Sales Mastery, where we show you guys what we do. Now I'm just going to bring you inside to a sort of sales partnership conversation, and it's live. Chris, I've never spoken to you before until now. Welcome to the podcast, and more importantly, it's nice to meet you.
Totally, thank you, Keith, for having me, for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of the Israeli community, which I really admire. And I hope to build a lot of bridges between Europe and Israel and also United States, because we also do have an office in New York, and we have a very good presence and network in San Francisco. But as Keith said, I'm the European guy. I did travel a lot before. It was easy. Now it's more complicated. But in Europe, the travel options are pretty good, and I hope that really soon we can meet again in Israeli, or we can meet in Europe. By the way, we also opened a small office in Tel Aviv recently, so that's also
very good. Whereabouts in Tel Aviv?
It's Monahan Begin 144 in WeWork.
Very nice. Okay. Monahan Begin, that's Midtown, yeah?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm in Midtown a lot. I was in Sapir before, Sapir Tower, so they're my two locations. So Chris, we can tell everyone else out there, but more importantly, tell me, because I still don't know. Tell me a bit about what you guys do, what you're looking for. Ultimately, why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, totally. So there is huge of a startup background, if you like to say that, in our company, and we have gone pretty, I would say, significant transformation from a services provider into a product provider and innovation provider for basically large companies that are seeking for innovation. And we found lots of smart people in many industries in Israel, and we hope to together build solutions in a rapid way, which I will come back what I mean by doing it rapidly real soon. But basically, I'm really inspired by bringing new tech to big markets. This is why we exist, and this is why I.
So, is there any specific type of tech that you're looking for? Because I have clients, and I'm more than happy to start saying, "Can you work with these guys?" What type of tech or what type of companies?
Totally. So basically, what I also have not told you yet is that we organized two biggest AI hackathons in the Central Europe, where corporates came with the problems, and because it was the AI hackathon, not a typical hackathon. Actually, it was inspired by data hack from Israel, and I know some guys from Israel that kind of inspired us to do the same thing. So the whole year long, we are organizing meetups where we invite international speakers, but once a year we throw out a hackathon, and it's a specific kind of hackathon because we need to have a data and a problem up front. Typically on a hackathon, people say, oh, let's just do something. We put judges and we pick the winners. But with AI hackathon, like on Kaggle, need to have data sets up front, and this was the most difficult thing to organize actually with corporates, to make them define the problem, which is easy, but provide us, let's say, 50 gigabytes of data towards this problem. So now the hackers can build machine learning and deep learning models to solve it. And once we manage to bring all the data, now the problem is really interesting for the hackers and also for the corporates, because they got the solution 36 hours later, and we got very positive feedback, like they've never find these innovations in the last 6 or 12 months, and we delivered.
Okay.
Community delivered it in 36 hours. So
I like
we
this. So first you sell the solution, then you figure out how to get the solution.
yeah. And that's actually how the sales process can run. Like you need to be always 2 or 3 steps ahead of your customer. Try to kind of in your head figure out what kind of problems he has. You need to be like a detective and be smart.
And if anybody asks, can you do that? Of course, absolutely. Tell me more about what you need. But you can actually get away with it better than I can. Tell me, what are these problems? I mean, be more specific. What are the problems that, if there's people watching right now, what kind of problems need solving through your corporates?
Yeah, so out of my head, I would say basically people don't like to do boring stuff, and we as humans want to learn, execute, and when we execute too many times the same thing, then we're bored, and we want to do and like something that is more complicated, and we want to learn even more. Uh, there are still some people that like to do repetitive stuff, but main of the majority of humanity likes to do new stuff.
Yeah.
So, but still, these boring things needs to get done, and they need to be done very frequently, very often, like more and more, because we now increasing production, growing GDP, and like there's more humans on the planet, etc. We're getting richer, so there still need to be some people delivering that, but we can see that more and more we're going to automate some of our lives, so we can be more creative and just enhance ourselves as humans. So basically, the question can be also like, what we as humans can use technology for, is to enhance ourselves, but at the same time, we don't want us to be the machines. We want. This is my philosophy that I would love the world to be the place where we humans can be more and more humans thanks to technology, and
Yeah.
let all these robots, do the stuff that we don't want to do, like cooking, or some people like cooking, but I don't know,
I hear what
cleaning.
you're saying. I get it. I hear what you're saying. I'm just sort of curious because, of course, this is the Startup Sales Mastery podcast where, we try and make actual, sales things happen. So I'm trying to be as productive as possible. I mean, for example, are there any specific corporates right now that could, need a certain solution that we can sort of say, okay, let's organize 5 or 10 or 20 startups to come and help the solution? What kind of solutions do we need solved right now?
Yeah, very good question, and a short plug or an ad that I'm really inspired by I guess Detroit company called Dream Adventures, that they have a 14-week acceleration program, but 2 week of this acceleration is actually real meetings in person, or before the virus it was in person, now it's Zoom, and
Yeah.
then they have two weeks of meetings with investors. And in between, they just master the deck and master the materials they have. But this is really, I guess, the core of the kind of new way for selling stuff. And for instance, in the industry or like manufacturing or automotive in Europe, the German market can be is very strongly rated with automotive. So
Yeah.
anything around making the production cost less or have higher capacity and
Okay.
higher quality. And we see that a lot of these solutions have something in between software and artificial intelligence, because I would say in the last 20 years, we've been building digitization of the processes that have been really, really manually done. But
Okay.
right now, just the digitization, I would say this is not enough. The corporates are seeking the intelligence or the smart thing, or you
Okay.
call it industry 5.0, but that's I guess where the innovation is mostly needed.
Okay, now I'm understanding better. So let me just summarize what you're saying, just to make sure at least I understand. Um, you're basically connecting, if you will, the very good tech community with the corporates to solve their intelligence needs, to make their production lines work in corporate language, more efficient or profitable. That's really what we're talking about. So you're sort of pre-making those potential sales and saying, look, let me bring you some guys. They're going to put the intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, what have you, into what you already have, possibly some hardware and software combination, make that process more, now I'll use a different word, profitable. And that's really what's in play. Am I correct, Chris, or have I missed anything?
Yeah, totally. I would say that 10 or 20 years ago, the hardware and the software was pretty good enough. And the
Yeah.
machine, of course, the kind of electronic hardware, but also like the big machines that are moving things and stuff.
Yeah.
These days, in those plants, we are speaking manufacturing, but if we jump from industry, say, to healthcare, imagine how little we have high quality doctors and how important it is to increase their capacity so they can handle more patients on daily basis.
And you have the corporate connections or the hospital connections to get into the whole, because I know you're very well connected over in Poland. You have those connections to get in.
Yeah, totally. In Poland, like the nice story of the region that I am living,
Yeah.
we've conducted we tried to conduct, it was a failed attempt, but we conducted this, I guess, 2 years later after the first heart transplantation in South Africa, if I remember correctly, in 1965. I think in Poland we conducted it back in 1967 under communism and under like all of the evil stuff. It was a failed attempt, but it just shows how kind of innovative in the terms of healthcare this region is. And 10 years later, it was a successful attempt. And yeah, that's really, there's a movie about it. Yeah, there's this really interesting story.
You'll have to tell me more. We're not going to go too long on this conversation. Of course, this is just getting to know each other, but I'm guessing there is a question burning on everyone's minds because I know the way the startup community thinks in terms of, and I know this is going to have to be somewhat of a vague answer, but these solutions. So you find a corporate or hospital or healthcare or this Detroit intermediary and we connect. Now we build the solution and the solution works. Congratulations, startup founders. You've created a solution. The corporates are going to take it. Everything works out well. Money, give or take, money, equity, deals. You tell me, what are we talking about? I mean, because of course, what can we say on this podcast to get these entrepreneurs excited about this conversation? That it's not just talk, there's actually a purpose.
Yeah, totally. It's like if the question is on the model, I would say that specifically, if we're speaking the Israeli tech companies coming to Europe and trying to sell directly to corporates, the best, like the very effective way, I don't know if this is the best way, but the very effective way is to have a local integrator in Germany, in Austria, in Czech, in Poland, like in Spain, that speaks the language, specifically in manufacturing, like they don't speak English very often and fluently on the manufacturing lane if you're talking to these engineers. So we need to have something that is native and work together with him on a pilot. And after the pilot is successful, like try to add more things. Like the typical is not a source of one problem, but I call it a stream of problems. So maybe your solution is solving one of these. But if you look around, maybe you will find another.
I figured it would have to be a vague answer. Let me ask something intrusive then. Your last client or a client before that, give me an example. How many problems they solved and give or take, what was the deal? And just sort of something that we can all wrap our heads around. What's the potential outcomes here?
So we're talking with a very large automotive manufacturer. I would not say exactly the name, but they have two problems on the quality side. One is like two problems. One is on the quality side, so they need to make sure that what they produce, what the output they have is really high quality. Otherwise, the very, very large everybody not like BMW returns back all the parts they have manufactured for them because they were not tested correctly. So they need to make sure that when the factory produce a series of these parts, they are 100% tested and according to the parameters that they promised to BMW. And you can imagine how how large of a damage is that the customer brings you back 150,000 parts back because it were poorly done. And another problem is that they're also losing some parts, like steel elements from the factory. People are just stealing stuff. Really, like that's really the problem they have, and they want to add some smart monitoring to make sure that nobody, like from the employees or their families or whatever, in the night is taking out the stuff.
Yeah.
This tool is very recent problems that we trying to see the solutions for. Yeah, and hopefully we'll find like providers to these solutions and get this solved.
You and I are going to have a conversation after this because I have a client that can solve one of those problems. But will I ask it live? To hell with it. I'm a sales guy. Sales guys just ask questions, good or wrong. We just ask them. I can solve the first problem you just mentioned. What kind of deal can you get me? What's it worth?
Basically, like with us, there's many. Actually, we're also flexible, so we don't have like one model that we execute. We're trying to figure out like the best model for each opportunity. But very likely we can just create a consortium because in order, say, to introduce some, let's say we have a super smart camera that's solving quality. Now the camera needs to talk to some software or to some hardware or send emails or I don't know, display on a screen. Like they need to, this solution needs to be plugged to what they have. So we can find a good like party, ideally locally based, that can like match the gaps and together like create A to Z comprehensive solution so that the customer can have things solved, not partially solved, but really solved from the birth. Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is you and I need to have more conversations, and I will try and get a concrete answer back because us sales guys, we like our concrete answers. Chris, it was a real pleasure getting to know you, and as I said, whilst I have these conversations with fellow sales guys in slightly different areas than me, it's always good to show people, look, this is how we have conversations. This is how we find out what's what. And of course, everybody's now gotten to learn what you do. Chris, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
I would just say that like I'd love to meet lots of Israeli tech people that are open-minded and to cooperate and come to not to America, not to Asia, but to Europe because this is really a nice quality-oriented market that you should focus first and foremost. And let's do some cool stuff together.
Okay, Chris, an absolute pleasure. Everyone watching here today, I hope you got some good value out of this. I will put some email addresses and some links in the comments if you want to get in touch with Chris or myself to find out more information about these opportunities. Good luck, and whatever it is you're doing, go sell some stuff. And of course, if you're having difficulty with your sales, as always, you'll see in the links above below, depending on where you're watching this, startupsalesmastery.com. All the information is there on how to create your perfect campaigns or hire me and my team to do them for you. Good luck, happy selling, and I'll see you all next week.